consider, you know, this is my wife, and have this...
Property. Property.
Now he's asking about what the nature of relationships would be like in the future. Would people own their, like today, own their wives?
They don't own anything in the future. They don't own other people. They're free to live with you if they want to, but you don't own anybody. You don't. You can't order somebody to go down and get me a sandwich. You go get it yourself, unless you're in a wheelchair. Understand? But other than that, the whole concept of ownership is gone. You have access to airplanes, sailboats. You train how to use them if you want, and you go wherever you want to go without filling out any forms, or without coming up to Fresco and say, "Can I take a sailboat?" I'll say, "Well, there's 15 people before you." We turn out more sailboats than people check out. Do you understand? No more filling out forms, no more bills, nothing like that. All gone. So you're a very different kind of people brought up under those conditions. Any other questions? Yes?
I have about a million questions, but I'm really sorry to bore people who already know this, but I just wondered what your role is, for example, what your sort of role in this situation is. I'm really new to this, I don't really know.
What my role is? I don't have any particular role.
Sorry,
I identify with this direction, and I work with it as I work towards it in any way that I can.
Yeah.
I've worked on the books, the videos. I did the cement work on all the buildings. I do emails. I do, you know, I laid out the books. I write in some degree with Jacque when we're working on new books or letters or answer questions and answers for articles. I just do everything I can.
As well. I'd like you guys, what your background is. I assume Jacque has an aeronautical background of some sort, but I really don't know. I'm really new to this. I'm really sorry if this is stuff that nobody knows. But
What's my background?
How you've come to here? How have you sort of your background into coming to this sort of idea?
I heard some of Jacque's lectures on tape, and it was more interesting than anything I'd ever heard. So I wherever I was, I left there and started going to his lectures in the 1970s. He would give lectures at his home about 3 nights a week. And we have some of those lectures on our website now. They're really interesting.
In his house?
He held them in his house, yeah. And he charged at that time $2 for members. We had an organization called Socio-Cyberneering, and engineering and applied to the social system. Socio-cybers and engineering and technology applied to the social system. But we changed that name when we moved to Venus because people, it was before they even used the word cyber. It became fashionable, and people couldn't pronounce socio-cyberneering, let alone spell it. So we changed it to the Venus Project. It's nothing to do with metaphysics or the planet Venus or the one-world government or anything that they say out there. So it's just because we lived in Venus. So I don't know. I went to the lectures, and I ended up taking his drafting courses, and he taught me how to do architectural models. So then I started a business doing architectural models and renderings, and that helped support the project. All the money went towards supporting the project because for 35 years we had no outside funding whatsoever. So I had that business, and during that time Jacque was working on a lot of models, and then we were filming the models, and I edited it just out of necessity because we couldn't afford it, having somebody else edit it. So, you know, I just worked at it like that.
The final question is just, like I said, I'm using this, but the tag Zeitgeist, the tag Venus project, when I heard that my friend was involved, seen as Zeitgeist, there was this enormous barrier and wall put up in my head that what is that? It's some sort of cliquey group or a religious type of thing. And I wondered, is it dangerous to label, or is it positive? Is that actual fact to give it an identity and a label is actually a really good idea because it gives people an understanding of where it is and what it is.
Sure, people wouldn't be able to talk about it. They wouldn't be able to associate anything with it. The Venus Project was in existence for like 35 years before Peter came along, but Peter put his first film out and had a following of over 50 million people had watched it. It even went over the count, so we really don't know. And so we wanted to leave the name Zeitgeist Movement because that had a following, and we were already using the term the Venus Project in our books and our videos and everything, so we just merged it with the separate names. But it's one of the same, essentially. I think a lot of people who join the Zeitgeist movement today even don't know about the Venus Project in some instances, but it's the activist arm of the Venus Project and is to help support that direction. Because a lot of people came to Peter during the first film and said, well, what do we do, where do we go? He said, I don't know. And I sent him, after I saw the Zeitgeist, the first one, I sent him Jacque's book, The Best That Money Can't Buy, and he immediately identified with it and came out and started filming. And a year later came out with the film, the second film, but he came to our place many times between and would sit there with the recorder when Jacque talked to him for days and days and days. And you can see the progression of Peter's thinking even through his different lectures as they changed too. So, we're all growing and evolving in this direction, learning more.
Thank you.
Yeah. Here, did you ask before?
No. So, Jacque, I'm fascinated to hear what you've said. I've got lots of questions, but I'll just stick with one, which is about not having money in the future.
Yes.
And I can see that when things are abundant, there's no need for money.
Yes.
But won't there always be some things that are scarce?
Yes.
Even though technology makes more and more things available, there will be cutting-edge medical treatments or new iPads or whatever when there isn't enough for everybody who wants them. So how will they be allocated?
Okay, that's a very good question too. First of all, I said today you can stick your arms into 2 units and move them, and you can do surgery from New York to Iceland. If a person needs an operation in Iceland, you're a doctor. You can manipulate the stuff in Iceland. You understand what I mean? By sticking your fingers in. Now, nurses, when you say hemostat, they give the doctor a surgical instrument. When you say clamps, then they give you clamps. But there's a thing called a turret head lathe, which has all the drilling bits and everything on one unit that turns. So in the future, when the doctor says hemostat, it turns, and he takes that, he doesn't need a nurse. You understand? Women, for example, when they hold a baby, some women, they support it well. Sometimes husband says, let me hold it. And he holds it and the baby goes like that. You men don't know how to hold a baby, see? Really, it's the pressure all around. Men, if you just have pressure on the bottom, the baby feels insecure. So I designed a basket that the baby goes in and it inflates and deflates, and it cried when you took it out. When the mother took it out of the basket handled the baby better than the mother. So if you know what it is that children like or don't like, and if you understand what shapes their values, like we don't order kids to do exercise because they don't like it. So we build a big lake in all the cities, lakes all over, with a hill in the middle, 150 feet high. There's a craft shop where you can make anything you want to make. To get there, you got to row a boat, you got to climb the hill. So to get to the art centers, you have to go up a hill and down and around, so you get plenty of exercise. We designed it as built into the city. Don't order people to do things. Get them to want to do things. So nobody owns a bicycle, but there are hundreds of bicycles. You just get on and use it. Leave it where you go. Nobody owns anything anymore. Do you understand that? Now, the only thing you might own is the paintings or sculpture. If you do clay modeling or art painting, like let's say he had about 500 paintings, originals. When the new society comes in, we walk over and say, would you mind putting your paintings on tour so everybody in the world can enjoy them? He said, no, they're mine. We put that in the morning paper. He said, no, they're mine. Okay?
Yeah, so technology will make more and more things available, like these wonderful
things you never dreamed of.
These wonderful medical treatments. So I'm very keen that we can get there as quickly as possible. But there's still going to be things where there isn't enough to go around for everybody.
Like what?
Well,
if you can name something.
There always will be some better medical treatment, or there will be a better a better bicycle.
Let me answer the better medical treatment first. Today, when they make automobiles, there's a guy that used to spray rubber under the car so the rain won't drive you crazy. That dampens the sound. But a man has to do that once in front of a computer. Spray the bottom, then from then on the computer does it. So if you get a guy that does good surgery and you make a photograph of every move he makes, then you can set your computer so it doesn't have tremors. The human has 10 tremors per second. Computer has none. So when the best surgeon does surgery, we record every move he makes, and the computer moves the instruments much better, and the suturing, man can only suture so fast, machines go, and you don't mean, when the hell was that done? In other words, machines will surpass man in most areas, except feeling. Feelings. Now somebody said, can you give machines feelings in the future? Well, if I gave feelings to your automobile and you were driving on a freeway, it might say, where the hell did you learn to drive? You want to get us killed? You know, you don't want feelings in an automobile. Here's what you want. You want it to keep its distance from other cars, not hit anyone, but you don't need feelings. Feelings serve no purpose in machines. You understand what that means? Now, if you run a sewing machine 9 days, Saturday, it doesn't say give me a day off either. It doesn't feel. So we think that emotions are generated and amplified in scarcity. In other words, they say, this guy has 5 Rolls Royces. Those are facelift, scarcity. But if everybody had the finest cars in the world, nobody would say, he has 5 Rolls Royces. The voice, the way it's animated, is because of scarcity. But if everybody had access to things, if you came to my house and you saw a baby grand piano, you might think, gee, I wish I had one for my cousin or sister. But you could have one for your cousin. So envy disappears. Understand? Envy is born in scarcity. Most human behavior is generated by scarcity. Now, if you get rid of scarcity, humans behave very different, extremely different. But they tell you that that's human nature, greed. Because ever since people have been around the earth, there's been scarcity. So they hoard, grab all they can grab, because they live in scarcity. But you people that are upper middle class, your kid will leave food in the plate. You say, you eat everything in the plate because there are starving people out there. That comes from scarcity. But if all the food of the future restaurants were hermetically sealed and fed or used in fertilizer, we would have no waste. We recycle everything. Even the package that you wrap the food in, when you put it in the ground, it may take 3 weeks, but it contains nutrients for the soil. So everything in the future will be of service to humankind.
Just one last question.
Women will use the same washrooms, same swimming pool. They'll swim nude when they're very young to do away with peeping toms and fetishes. And you can't sell magazines with nude girls in it because no one would buy it. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, people think I'm depriving people. I know what makes peeping toms, and that's scarcity. They never get to see a female's body, so they look in windows. And girls say, that's a terrible thing. No, it's the result of this stinking society. If you boys and girls use the same washroom when they're very young, they will look at each other, and that'll be over in 3 or 4 days, and they'll go on. You couldn't sell pictures of nude people. Now, if you bring a nice, healthy boy up with 6 women, selected women, very effeminate women, that move their hands and face different than men. Women say, oh, did I see a gorgeous hat? The face, the hand movements are very different. So if that boy is brought up with 6 women, very effeminate, he will move just like a woman. You get me a goddamn fag. He's not a goddamn anything. It's your own projections. There's nothing wrong with anybody. Everybody behaves perfectly normal where they're coming from. Whether it's Irish dialect or Swedish. Yes.
Do you envisage that children will be brought up in the future?
How would children be raised?
First, they'd be not raised by the family. But you don't take them away from the family. You can't do that. You have summer camp, and you show television, kids swimming, learning, learning environment. And normal people will tend to send their kids to summer camp. At summer camp, we say, your father was raised in the Philippines, and this is a custom that he grew up with. So be nice to your father, even though he says you can't change human nature. Whatever he says, it's normal to where he's coming from. We teach kids anthropology, sociology, social change. We teach them as much as we can so they understand, not tolerate. I don't like the word tolerate, because it means to put up with. I want kids to understand the world they live in.
What about breastfeeding?
Okay.
How about from when the child is very young, from an infant?
And breastfeeding.
How would they be raised from that early stage?
During the transition, all that will be in. After the transition, children suck on anything, your ear, or anything. They think suckling is a reflex, natural, human nature. They don't. If you put them on your knee, they'll suck your knee. And they have no preferences. Now, they told me, they got mad at some of those guys. They said, how does a bird know how to build a nest? The mother fish never gets fish together and says, this is how you get to the spawning grounds, opens a map and shows all the fish. No, the fish do it, and the scientists have to account for that. So how do the fish know how to get to the spawning grounds? That's thousands of miles away. They said they do it instinctively. They might as well say they do it by bula bula. Instinct doesn't tell you a damn thing. She's naturally gifted. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you how she draws or creates music. What the Venus Project does, it shows kids how we get to be the way we are. So I took a bird egg out of the nest, and I raised the bird out of the nest, and when it was pregnant again with eggs, it never built a nest. Unless it was born in a nest, the eyes imprint. But I tell you this in school, which is false, that nature is so wonderful that it accommodates, that it'll make some insects look like a leaf. You ever see that? And some insects look like something else. So they said nature adjusts. Nature doesn't do anything of the kind. If an insect is born that looks like a leaf, and he stays in a white sandy area, he's picked on, so he keeps crawling. And when he gets to an area that looks like his body, they stay there. And the naturalists think that nature gave them that ability. It's just the opposite. They think that camels have wide hoofs so they won't sink in the sand. They have wide hoofs and they don't sink in the sand. They don't have wide hoofs not to sink in the sand. They also in school, medical school, tell you have eyebrows. When you sweat, it takes the sweat off to the side and doesn't go in your eyes. Then they say that's the purpose of the eyebrows. Another doctor said the purpose of the eyes are to see with. So I said, come with me into a dark room. I said, see. He said, I can't see anything unless you turn a light on. So you don't see with your eyes. Light enables you to see, and the back lobe of the brain, the occipital lobe, interprets the vision. So people think they have fingernails to scratch insects off their skin. If God made insects, and he makes a fingernail, then he's a horse's ass. You don't need to make fingernails if you make no insects. But anyway, people are born many different ways. If you were born with a big bony growth and somebody came at you, when you put that there, you'd be protected. Animals do not have horns to protect themselves, as it says in your school books. They have horns. If animals had horns to protect themselves, where's the horns on a rabbit? And when you cough and sneeze, what's the purpose of that? To infect other people? Why don't you put everything in the book? The reason the guy sneezes is to launch the germs at you, so you get a cold. You understand? Man projects his own values into everything. This includes scientists. They talk of the Big Bang was the beginning of everything. What was the day before the Big Bang? Nothing. There were a lot of stupid stuff in science and technology. If a man were a scientist, he'd say, what makes wars? Why do people kill each other? He'd get step out of his field and ask questions in all areas. But when you train a guy in chemistry, he thinks as a chemist. You train a guy in structural engineers, He's always looking at structures and engineering. See, but people in the future will be trained in the history of civilization, how they used to feed Christians lions and torture people and stretch them apart. All the stupid things that man did too will be in your school books. Now, you know the witch hunts in Salem? In Salem, Massachusetts, we used to burn women, mostly set them ablaze, if they thought differently. Now, did you know this? That if you found a witch, you got her bank account and land? So you look for as many witches as you can. They don't put that in your school books.
Did you have a follow-up with that?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask.